A 16-year-old boy treated as a mind-reading monster. He can discern the colors of people's hearts, yet he doesn't understand his own emotions. With this gift alone, he survives in the apocalyptic ruins. People frantically search through the rubble for any remaining supplies. A massive creature approaches, the mysterious golem. Someone raises a flashlight they found, shouting up at the golem to trade it for food. But after the golem's eyes flash red, it coldly turns and walks away. The rejected man rages and curses, but no one dares attack the creature. Legend has it that attacking the golem brings deadly retaliation. It will invade the district and claim lives. From the shadows above, a boy in a hat overlooks everything. He leaps down gracefully, landing precisely in the golem's path. Calmly, he unslings his backpack. Inside are the metal scraps he's collected. The golem's eyes instantly light up with pleased red light, accepting all the offerings. In return, an abundance of portable food rains down at his feet. The surrounding crowd watches with burning eyes, jealousy nearly spilling over. That much food could keep someone full for 3 days. An incredible temptation. Some grow restless, whispering plans to rob him, but their accomplices immediately stop them in terror, reminding them, that's the white ghost. The boy, carrying his haul, walks into the filthy, winding alley. He suddenly stops. Without turning, he calls out the stalkers. Led by a fat man named Len, a group of people emerge and surround him. Len flashes his brass knuckles, letting out a threatening laugh meant to intimidate. The boy named Ray only coldly repeats his last warning. He said if he saw Len again, he'd cripple his legs. Len shouts loudly, demanding Ray leave his backpack and he'll let him go. Ray calmly exposes the lie, knowing they never planned to let him leave alive. Rumors of the white ghost have long circulated in District 17. They say never make eye contact with him, or your lies will be exposed instantly. Len's hands begin to tremble, his exposed panic turning to rage. He roars and charges forward with a punch, trying to end this fear. Ray merely tilts his head slightly. The full-force blow misses completely. He grabs Len's collar in one smooth motion, not to save him, but to strike. Len screams as he crashes to the ground. His men are too scared to advance after witnessing this brutality. Amid the clamor and killing intent, they finally surge forward together. Baseball bats swing down with whooshing sounds, but he easily ducks beneath them. Ray's counterattacks are precise and swift. Warm blood sprays through the air, yet his eyes remain cold throughout, as if dealing with lifeless garbage. In moments, all the attackers lie writhing in pain on the ground. Both afraid and hateful, Len trembles and curses him as a real monster. Watching Ray approach, he scrambles backward in terror. Ray simply calmly restates his warning. Len suddenly pulls out a hidden folding knife, cursing monster as he wildly slashes the air. The blade reflects Ray's twisted face as he thinks, a monster? Perhaps they're not wrong. Around age 10, he realized his abnormality. When his knee was badly cut and bleeding, he didn't understand why he should cry. When his friends were bullied, he didn't know what anger felt like. When companions died and everyone wept, he couldn't shed a single tear. The children called him strange and terrifying, avoiding him one by one. That moment he understood, he couldn't feel what people call emotions. As a small child, he'd gaze at the moon, confused if something was wrong with him. He once longed to be like others, to experience the taste of emotions. 6 years passed, yet he only learned to recognize others' feelings. Now, he tells Len there's an unwritten rule in the district: no knives. Len claims he found the knife, but the color in his chest exposes him. Ray can know people's emotions from the color of their heart's vessel. When emotions arise, specific colored magic fills it completely. Red tones are anger, hatred, and love. Blue tones are mockery and indifference. Yellow tones are joy and excitement, plus countless other colors. His world is a riot of colors others cannot imagine. Len raises the knife, threatening to stab if he comes closer. That intense black magic is absolute terror. His steps don't stop, cornering Len against the wall with nowhere to retreat. Len shakes like a leaf, terror completely consuming him. Ray looks down at him like passing judgment. Liars deserve punishment. Ray walks alone through the pitch-black rain, returning to his home under the bridge. The moment he lifts the curtain, the children cry out joyfully and hang on to him. Big brother Pell greets everyone with a smile. They gather together to check today's harvest. The children pull out food, pitifully little. The mood immediately sinks. Seeing everyone's dejected faces, Ray silently opens his own bag. Inside, the abundant fresh food draws gasps from the children. They look at him with admiration, thinking the golem favors Ray. But Ray knows the golem only accepts items with magic. Pell can eat his fill today, happily presiding over the distribution. While everyone shares cheerfully, Ray walks outside alone. He sits quietly, knowing this food won't last long. Perhaps he should check the warehouse again. Keeping these children fed is the life-saving debt he must repay. A year ago, he collapsed in the snow, thinking dying there wouldn't matter. These children pulled him up, gave him warmth he hadn't felt in so long. His principle is an eye for an eye. Both kindness and enmity must be repaid. Pell comes out to find him, telling him to get his share. Ray stubbornly says he's not hungry, but his stomach growls at the wrong moment. Pell laughs and breaks off half a cookie to share with him. Then Pell gazes at the black rain, mentioning a rumor he heard. They say magicians abusing magic turn the rain black. Those noble magicians all live in the lower-numbered districts. Even that golem must be a creation sent by the magicians. Ray suggests it might just be a machine, but Pell's eyes light up. He firmly believes magic makes it move, his eyes full of longing. Ray inwardly agrees partly. The golem does show anomalies when operating. Magic converges toward its core, mixing and rising as black mist. This black mist and black rain might truly be connected, but compared to that, there's something more important right now. He suddenly stands, and Pell quickly reminds him about the dangerous river, but Ray already rushes into the torrential black rain without looking back. Pell can't stop him, only sighing helplessly. The rain grows heavier, and most people fear getting sick from it. Yet Ray runs through the rain, knowing how to avoid its dangers. He reaches District 18's granary, where gambling is in full swing. Every black rain day, the guards grow lax, indulging in gambling. He easily slips through a gap in the wire fence. Inside the warehouse, complete darkness, but brilliant colors flow in his eyes. He concentrates, extracting specific colors for complex blending. Red and yellow light gather in his palm, igniting a small flame, using this light to find his target while pondering the mystery of magic. Red magic is hard to control. He wonders what other emotions it corresponds to. Just then, a flying knife sharply pierces the darkness toward him. He swiftly dodges sideways, but his ear still gets cut. A mocking voice calls out, saying the little rat stealing food finally shows himself. Three men emerge from hiding, wearing special night vision goggles. They know Ray's position, smugly telling him to struggle all he wants. Ray calmly assesses. 3 men total, relying on equipment to see. More knives fly at him, but he watches them. Not with his eyes, but through sensing. He suddenly charges forward at surprising speed. They immediately panic. Before the leader finishes speaking, he takes a direct hit and crumples. The remaining 2 are shocked and furious, not believing this boy can see through them. Ray indeed can see, the colors of magic flowing in their blood vessels. Reading the trajectory of magic flow lets him predict every move. The second man attacks with a knife, his openings completely visible to Ray. He easily dodges, striking in one motion, and that man falls too. The third tries to counter, but Ray instantly closes the distance. A heavy blow to the chest, and the third loses consciousness completely. The fight ends. Ray adjusts his hat back on. Just then, the warehouse door gets kicked open violently. A burly man walks in, cursing, his expression hostile. He's Humphrey, an officer of the area's manager Hector. Seeing his fallen men, Humphrey sighs repeatedly in disappointment, extremely dissatisfied that the 3 brothers lost to one little rat. He decides to handle this farce personally. Ray instantly becomes alert, sensing the terrifying pressure from the officer. Only one thought in his mind: he must escape from here immediately. His legs push off as he throws his fist with full force at the man, but that strike is like a dragonfly touching water. Humphrey doesn't budge. Humphrey coldly speaks, telling him to try dodging this. Then a huge hand shoots toward Ray at shocking speed. Ray barely dodges sideways, surprised the man moves so fast. He quickly retreats, putting distance between them. Humphrey smiles with amusement, praising his agility. Ray reassesses too. This man is stronger than any previous opponent. Humphrey attacks again, his assault like a violent storm. Ray can only keep dodging, completely unable to fight back. Instinct tells him a direct confrontation means certain defeat. As he ducks beneath a punch, he glimpses an opening. That completely unguarded chest becomes his only hope. If that's the case, then aim for the opening with everything he's got. He gathers power in his right hand, condensing red magic, then slams it hard into his chest. Humphrey grunts in pain, clutching his chest and backing away warily. When he looks up again, Ray has vanished without a trace. Humphrey roars orders. They absolutely cannot let him escape. Hiding in the shadows, Ray knows he'll be found if this continues. He picks up a rock and throws it hard in the opposite direction. The noise successfully draws the pursuers away, and he sprints toward a side path. The Hector organization has a terrible reputation. Getting caught means certain death. He doesn't care about himself, but he can't abandon the children under the bridge. If he's gone, those children definitely won't survive. Then he'll never be able to repay their kindness. However, one pursuer still spots him. Ray has no choice but to run with all his remaining strength, but the path ahead suddenly ends. It's a dead end. The 2 men catching up curse as they approach with their knives. Ray glances back and notices Humphrey isn't among them. In that case, he has a chance. His fist secretly gathers power. Seeing his silence, they rush at him angrily. Ray suddenly shoves aside an arm, following with a punch to the face. The other man charges with his knife. Ray's palm condenses terrifying red magic again. The man is shocked, not understanding why his strength is so great. Yellow magic immediately strikes the head, and the man screams and falls. Though he dealt with both men, the commotion attracts more pursuers. Ray's magic can't be used infinitely. He must hide immediately. His eyes catch the garbage bin behind him, and he dives in without hesitation. The pursuers' shouts pass by. They don't notice him. Ray holds his breath in the cramped space, listening to the footsteps fade. He decides to endure here tonight. Returning to the bridge now would only bring danger to the children. Gradually, everything quiets, leaving only the patter of rain. He wearily closes his eyes, wondering when this rain will stop. When he opens them again, it's the next morning. Sunlight streams through the cracks. Just as he jumps out of the bin, a cold voice rings out. A man stands right in front of him, his chest surging with angry red light. The man grits his teeth, glad he was right to circle back. His opponent is in a rage, while Ray's stamina hasn't fully recovered. The man roars about killing him and charges. The 2 clash briefly, neither gaining the upper hand. The man dodges, then attacks viciously again. Ray barely retreats to avoid it. Damn, his body loses balance instantly. The man thinks victory is his, sneering about sending him off. The next second, the short knife drives straight toward Ray's eye. Blood splatters onto Ray's face, bringing warm sensation. But the one who falls is the vicious man. Beside him, another man holds a still smoking gun. The man jokes about the close call, then casually lights a cigarette, asking why he's making trouble so early in the morning. He's the controller of District 17, black-haired Niles. Ray wipes the blood from his face, but inwardly wonders why this big shot would appear here now. Niles' gaze falls on the canned goods in his arms, immediately understanding. Ray vaguely admits it, but thinks this person is troublesome. He occasionally meets this type, people with faint emotions, very pale colors in their chest. Niles warns him this recklessness will get him killed sooner or later, then scratches his hair, sighing that this repays the life-saving debt. Ray seriously corrects him. He just thought he was fishing out scrap metal. This honesty makes Niles laugh. The scene from a year ago surfaces. Ray pulled this betrayed man from the river. In return, the man taught him those survival combat skills. Ray suddenly brings up old business, about that invitation to join the organization. He announces his decision to join, thinking the children will have support. But Niles' reaction is unusually flat, just humming acknowledgement. He turns to leave, but stops at the corner. Through the smoke, he suddenly asks Ray if he's using magic. Ray's eyes widen instantly, his heart racing. How does he know? Niles says he guessed when he saw him light a campfire with a lighter. Ray urgently presses closer, asking if any magicians can see colors. Niles says he only asked magicians in his previous organization. The magician said magic is invisible to the naked eye. Ray looks up at the colors in the air, wondering what they really are. Unwilling to give up, he questions details, suspecting Niles has a bad memory. This angers Niles, who swings to punch him, but Ray nimbly dodges. Ray returns to the point, asking again about joining the organization. This time Niles flatly refuses. No. He looks at Ray, feeling regret about wasting such talent. Having this kid mix with third-rate gangs in the slums is such a waste. He finally speaks, asking Ray if he wants to leave this district. Ray immediately shakes his head. He must stay to support those children. Niles smiles, saying he's planning to open an orphanage. Ray observes the faint color in his chest, judging the statement is sincere. He knows Niles is always a man of his word. The topic shifts to the imminent crisis. Ray reminds him Hector is going to war. Niles says he knows. Using live ammunition means all-out war. Ray relays the neighbors' concerns. Everyone hopes Niles will win. Because his protection fees are relatively fair, he's a man of principles. Just then, subordinates arrive with a car. Before leaving, Niles urges them to relocate quickly. He tosses Ray a small bottle, reminding him to disinfect his ear. Ray catches the medicine bottle, watching him disappear into the daylight by car, back in the dilapidated district. Josephine runs over happily. After discovering Ray's injury, she chokes up, asking who hit him. Ray sees her rich emotions, so he pats her head, telling her to take the canned goods back first. By the roadside, blind Grandma Bayola sits in the sun. Ray asks what she was just talking to Josephine about. She laughs and says, rainbows. Ray can't help frowning, asking her not to always tell the children fantasy stories. Indulging in fantasies makes it harder for them to face the district's harsh reality. Ray looks at the intense and unique purple color in her chest, puzzled. He's never seen this color of emotion in anyone else. What does it represent? Before leaving, he reminds Grandma that war is coming, she should move to another district. The next day, he makes a delivery, but the shop owner doesn't seem that nervous. He says Hector and Niles are negotiating inside. Maybe the war won't happen. Just as he finishes speaking, the door opens and Hector's group walks out. Ray quickly lowers his hat brim, avoiding eye contact. Hector notices Ray, grabs his neck and praises him for being obedient, even rewards him with a few coins. But at the back of the group, Humphrey suddenly turns around, his gaze sharp as a blade. He sees the fresh wound on Ray's earlobe. Ray pulls his hat lower, his whole body on guard. Humphrey only frowns, ultimately says nothing and turns to leave. Ray breathes a sigh of relief but feels uneasy. Why did he let him go? The shop owner goes inside to ask about the negotiation results, but the atmosphere inside has dropped to freezing. Niles announces the negotiation collapsed. War is about to begin. The owner is shocked, not expecting the worst to happen after all. Niles is helpless. After all, their annexation demands are too excessive. He can only fight. He solemnly instructs Ray to stay at the bridge during this period. Don't go out. Ray walks the desolate streets, calculating the shadow of war in his mind. He needs to stockpile enough food before the fighting starts. Just then, a luxury car suddenly drives past him. The instant he recognizes the driver as Humphrey, Ray's alertness spikes. This car appearing in this area is too suspicious. He decides to follow and investigate. The car stops at the rival organization's entrance, a group waiting respectfully. Hector personally opens the car door. A pair of shiny leather shoes steps onto the filthy ground. A well-dressed man wearing a monocle elegantly exits the car. Ray's pupils suddenly constrict, staring hard at the man's chest. Their churns nearly black, deep blue magic, massive and oppressive. That color is so similar to the golem he saw before. What concerns him more is the ring binding the magic. Like a lock. Dangerous aura hits him head-on. He must warn Niles immediately. District 17 fills with tense atmosphere of impending storm. People silently transport weapons, preparing for the coming slaughter. Ray finds a red-haired member urgently asking where Niles is. The man is shocked to see him, sternly urging him to leave quickly. Niles is out on patrol. This place is too dangerous for for Ray. Ray is anxious but can't directly explain the magic threat. He can only solemnly entrust the other. Make sure Niles is careful of the man with the monocle. Late night under the bridge, the children fall into uneasy sleep. Pell prays softly, hoping the war will end quickly. Ray offers comfort, but knows in his heart that victory determines everyone's fate. Only if Niles wins will the children under the bridge have a chance. Otherwise, a tragic future as slaves awaits them. Just then, strange and massive rumbling sounds from the distance. Pell trembles in fear, and Ray immediately stands up. That sound is definitely not an ordinary gunfight. An ominous premonition grips him. District 17 has turned into hell. Bullets bounce off the golem's body. People discover in horror that their attacks are completely useless. The golem condenses destructive blue energy in its hand and fires. Survivors collapse on the ground, paralyzed with fear. The golem's eyes flash with cold light. Like crushing bugs, it pulverizes human bodies. Blood splatters onto the elegant umbrella's surface. The man beneath the umbrella shows disgust. He surveys his work with satisfaction, smiling as he issues the massacre order. Under the bridge, the explosions grow closer. Ray insists on going to check. Pell frantically grabs Ray, wanting to go together. Just then, a child wakes up, asking what's happening in confusion. Pell can only pretend to be calm and comfort them. He promises to stay and care for his younger siblings, but keeps urging Ray to return quickly. Ray steps onto the battlefield to find mangled corpses everywhere. He finds the dying red-haired man in a pool of blood. Using his last strength, the man reveals the truth about the golem and monocle man. Before absolute power, their resistance was utterly futile. With the final words run falling, his life ends too. Ray silently closes his eyes, slowly draws out his short knife. Rage burns in his cold chest. He can't just watch anymore. He must help Niles and turn this desperate battle around. But at this moment, the bridge has become another slaughter ground. Pell is covered in blood, tightly holding lifeless Josephine. The other children also lie in pools of blood, their small bodies motionless. The golem's massive shadow looms over them, charging its final light. Pell raises his head, tears mixed with blood sliding down. In the last moment before consciousness fades, his only thought is prayer. Praying Ray won't come back, that he'll definitely survive safely. Ray stands in the center of District 17, now ruins, his whole body ice cold. Everywhere he looks are familiar corpses. He doesn't find Niles's body. Perhaps he's still alive. Just then, terrifying rumbling comes from the bridge behind him. Without hesitation, he turns and sprints desperately toward that dust cloud. By the time he arrives, under the bridge has turned to ashes. The golem's massive body still stands there. A pool of glaring blood on the ground leaves his mind blank. Rage drives him to leap down with his knife. The golem immediately turns. Its giant palm grabs him like crushing a toy. Excruciating pain shoots through his ribs as blood sprays from his mouth. The next second, he's violently thrown against the wall, cracking it like a spider web. His body crashes down, but in the agony, his consciousness drifts toward beautiful fantasy. He seems to hear the children happily calling him Brother Ray. His sister holds the smallest child, showing him a warm smile. But Pell looks at him, softly saying he hopes he won't come back. These words pierce the dream like an ice pick, dragging him back to cruel reality. Before him, there's no laughter, only cold corpses on the ground. Those names cry blood in his heart. Lorraine, Leah, Cotton, and Miles, Josephine, Pell. His hands won't stop trembling. He'll never feel their warmth again. Despair drowns him. He hasn't repaid the debt he owes. The golem's footsteps shake the ground as it approaches again. It's the one that killed everyone. The children under the bridge, the organization members, everyone in the district. All these blood debts must be repaid by it. Rage gives him strength. He grits his teeth, trying to make his body move. But the injuries are too severe, and the golem's palm already shadows his head. In this desperate moment, blinding headlights tear through the rain and charge forward. A familiar car crashes into the golem with determination, forcing it back into the river. Niles jumps from the car, frantically calling Ray's name. After a quick check, the man is relieved he has no broken bones. Ray trembles all over, telling him about the children's tragedy. Niles sees the horrific scene. He lowers his head, his voice heavy with guilt. The black rain falls as Ray's tears finally break free, mixing with the rain. He asks hoarsely why the man is apologizing. This isn't his fault at all. Niles doesn't answer, only holds him tightly with heartache. In this suffocating embrace, Ray finds a moment's support. His emotions somewhat calmed, he asks in a hoarse voice about the plan. Niles painfully informs him all members perished, cursing Hector's treachery. He must return to the district first to settle survivors. The battle must be postponed for now. The words barely finish before a deep blue magic beam pierces through his body. Ray's pupils shrink to pinpoints, time seemingly freezing at this moment. The golem from the river has climbed ashore at some point, standing silently behind them. Niles looks down, seeing the horrific hole burn through his abdomen. Ray can't comprehend anything before him. The world loses all sound. But Niles gives him his usual mischievous grin, softly saying damn, then falling powerlessly into his arms. Hot blood surges out, rapidly soaking his hands and clothes. He futilely calls Niles's name. His heart pounds wildly in his chest, nearly exploding. Memories surge uncontrollably, nights when Niles taught him to fight. Lazy times when they shared a single donut on an old couch, how he always smiled like that, loudly calling his name. Ray, sorrow, despair, pain, all instantly consumed by pure rage. Red light explodes from within him, violently intertwining. The golem condenses deep blue magic, preparing to attack again. Ray has only one roaring thought: I'm going to kill it! Ray raises his own arm. A scorching power bursts from his palm, meeting the golem's cold light. The two forces collide fiercely in midair, emitting a piercing shriek. Ray clenches his teeth, actually matching that behemoth in stalemate. Where the powers meet, white light explodes, consuming everything. Ray stares into the golem's hollow eyes, his conviction burning. He's different from this cold creation. He's a human with emotions. This thought becomes fuel, and the power within him suddenly surges. Crimson flames instantly overwhelm the golem's ghostly blue glow. The violent pillar of fire completely engulfs the golem, burning it to ash. Ray ends the enemy with just one hand while the other still protects his dear friend. The ground bears shocking scorch marks, steaming with residual heat. He frantically puts down Niles, futilely shaking and calling his name. Niles weakly opens his eyes, still making broken jokes. He knew all along he'd die badly, just didn't expect it today. In his final moments, he recalls his life climbing from humble beginnings. Many achievements, no regrets, just one lingering regret in his heart. If he'd learned to resist earlier, would the outcome have been different? He looks at Ray before him, as if seeing his younger self. He grabs Ray, who's about to get medicine, tells him to leave this place, go somewhere better. Niles had long regarded Ray as his younger brother. His final instruction: swim against the current, don't go with the flow. He believed Ray could definitely do it. The tight grip finally loosened, leaving only a car key and a note in Ray's palm. Ray stood frozen in place. He understood that figure who always stood in front had disappeared. Immense sorrow and burning rage completely drowned him. These were the first two emotions he truly learned in his life. He raised his head, letting out a heart-wrenching roar into the pitch-black, rainy night, until daylight pierced through the clouds, illuminating his rigid figure sitting under the bridge. The sunlight brought pain. Yesterday felt like a cruel dream, but those overwhelming emotions were truly branded into his heart. Something had indeed been permanently changed. He pressed his hand against his chest as red and yellow magic instantly surged forth. A stable flame burned quietly in his palm, under his complete control. When rage rose in his heart, the flame shot up violently. Intense headache followed, reminding him of the price of this power. Niles's dying words echoed in his ears once more. He looked at the properly arranged body beside him, his gaze regaining determination. It was time to set out, to repay kindness and, more importantly, to take revenge. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This was his principle. Central Commercial Street was in ruins, Hector's men cleaning up the battlefield. The surviving residents whispered fearfully about the darker days ahead. Ray crouched in the shadows, his gaze locked on his enemy Hector. Hector was gloating, mocking Niles's overestimation of his abilities. Flames of revenge instantly wrapped around Ray's blade. Just as he was about to rush out, a hand suddenly landed on his shoulder. Without thinking, Ray swung his knife in response. Humphrey dodged, but the blade still opened a bloody gash on his chin. He tried to get Ray to calm down. Ray recognized him as one of Hector's gang, his mind filled only with killing intent. The blade flashed, leaving many wounds on Humphrey's arms. Humphrey grew more alarmed as they fought. This kid's speed and strength far exceeded the other day. If this continued, he'd lose. Steeling himself, he deliberately left an opening. Ray's knife indeed pierced his right shoulder. His movements momentarily stiffened. At that moment, Humphrey grabbed Ray's collar and violently threw him to the ground. He suppressed the pain from his wound, staring directly into Ray's burning eyes. He had a proposal that wouldn't let Ray throw his life away for nothing. Humphrey's intervention extinguished Ray's desperate rage. He coldly assessed this man known for his silence. The urgency and sincerity in his eyes made him willing to try listening. Humphrey got straight to the point, asking him to leave this district. The purpose was to find his brother sold to the Magician City years ago. Ray refused coldly, believing he had no obligation to accept this request. But Humphrey suddenly exposed his deepest secret. He could use magic. The wound he left on Humphrey's chest that night was proof. He warned Ray that the magician was a cruel demon who would use various methods to torture his subordinates for venting. Seeking revenge now would be suicide. Ray looked at the restless, pitch-black magic in his chest, finally wavering. Humphrey was right. Instinct alone couldn't fight a professional magician. To survive meant having a future. Leaving was the only way to live. Humphrey pointed upstream toward the Magician's City, the only destination. He shoved all his savings and clues about his brother to Ray without question. Ray didn't understand why he'd entrust everything to a stranger, but Humphrey said he believed in Ray's character and abilities. The moment he heard believe, he seemed to see Niles casting the same gaze from behind. With pursuers closing in urgently, Ray made his final decision. He proposed one condition: bury all his companions' bodies under the bridge. Humphrey solemnly agreed. Ray turned toward the sunlight, leaving the dark district behind. He moved swiftly through the streets, only relaxing slightly after confirming no one followed. At the corner, Grandma Beola's figure made him stop. He dropped in a coin, wanting to ask one question: was the legend of the rainbow real? Could it truly grant any wish? Memories surged. Josephine's excited voice describing the rainbow rang in his ears. She said it was a colorful bridge after the rain. Finding the rainbow's tail would let you make a wish. Humphrey had also mentioned that magician was seeking the rainbow too. This proved the legend wasn't baseless. It must exist. Grandma slowly nodded. The rainbow truly exists and can grant any wish, only no one knows which corner it hides in. This answer was enough. Ray thanked her solemnly. He urged Grandma again to relocate, then left. He had to keep moving forward toward the path Niles prepared for him. Following the note's directions, he found the target in District 23. In front of a blue building, that white car waited quietly. Niles' final promise had now become his only support. He prepared to open the car door but heard an unfriendly challenge. It was Hector's men. They'd actually tracked him here. They recognized him, viciously demanding Niles' whereabouts. Ray's heart sank. He couldn't waste more time entangled with them. He decisively got into the car, trying to close the door and start the engine. The man charged up furiously, desperately clinging to the closing car door. The two locked in close stalemate. Time ticked away second by second. Ray felt the enhancement magic's effect rapidly fading from his body. He hesitated no longer, his free hand condensing the last of his power. Magic shot out like an invisible bullet, hitting right between the man's brows. The man released his grip and fell back on the ground. Ray slammed the door shut and stepped hard on the gas without hesitation. The engine roared, wheels grinding over dust. Everything passed rapidly shrinking in the rearview mirror. He finally left the cage called District 50. The car traveled along the desolate river channel. As dusk approached, Ray stopped the car. He opened the trunk. Inside was packed with supplies Niles prepared, but the next district was still far away, not reachable in a day or two. He lit a campfire, organizing known information in the dancing firelight. Magic roughly divided into two types. This was the first fact he confirmed. One type, like red magic, could be used without processing. The other must go through color mixing and fusion to take effect. Magic usually lay dormant, only strong emotions could draw it out. He focused on the churning hatred in his heart. Blood-red magic instantly gathered in his chest, but in just a moment, that power scattered and vanished. Breathing heavily, he realized this was his emotional limit for now. He decided to try more complex color mixing. Different halos began to emerge, but magic with opposing properties collided with each other, dissipating before they could fuse. Frustration welled up. Color mixing required incredibly delicate control. The mental energy consumed far exceeded simply drawing out one color of magic. But there must be combinations that could perfectly fuse. He had to start studying those color mixing formulas he once disdained, because he needed to become powerful now. He looked up, seeing aurora-like brilliant magic flowing across the sky. The next day he continued his journey. Under the scorching sun, he could only rest briefly in the shadows of boulders. Night became the best practice ground. He tried repeatedly under the stars, though progress was slow, but he could finally barely control the most basic magic. Before sleeping, he still pondered more efficient methods. If he could pre-store magic in containers, use it at will, just like the floating ring container on that magician's chest. After reaching District 49, he'd definitely find a way. Meanwhile, District 50 had fallen into chaos. The magician's patience had clearly run out, his tone icy. His subordinate apologized, trembling, promising to find the golem immediately. His response was a cold wand pointed directly at him. The subordinate was terrified out of his wits, begging for one more chance. But the magician told him to grasp the wand. In extreme terror, the subordinate could only comply. Instantly, bone-chilling cold shot through his entire body like lightning. Soon, he became a rigid ice sculpture. The ice sculpture fell and shattered into pieces. The magician only coldly commented, "Useless." Just then, someone discovered strange grooves and battle traces on the ground. From the traces, the golem had fought something intensely here. The magician approached, keenly sensing residual fluctuations in the air. It seemed powerful magic had once flowed here. He crouched down to observe carefully, asking who lived here before. His subordinate quickly answered, "Street orphans used to shelter here." But the magician frowned. Orphans could use such magic? The magician first fell silent, then threw his head back, laughing as if hearing a joke. Not believing orphans could self-teach and derive elemental formulas, he determined a foreign magician destroyed the golem and ordered a thorough investigation. But as he turned to leave, an absurd thought crossed his mind. What if it really was an orphan? Then that child would be an unprecedented genius magician. And at this moment, Ray finally reached District 49. Ray couldn't help recalling before Niles' incident. Back then, he described to Ray the place where he was born. He said District 42 was also a filthy sewer, but the difference was, it was much larger than District 50. Buildings were taller, streets crisscrossed, sprawling wider. Now, he stood on District 49 soil. Looking around, garbage piles and running children were still everywhere. But one thing was strange. He couldn't see those patrolling golems here. He walked the streets, noisy voices and drunk shouts intertwining. This place was at least twice the size of District 50. His first step was gathering intelligence on magic and that circular container. That was a crucial clue on his path to revenge. He also needed to find traces of the rainbow in the magician's city. Of course, he urgently needed money to sustain his journey. Just then, a shop sign on the corner caught his eye. Bolonica Bookstore. Bolonica sounded like a person's name, but he'd never heard of a bookstore. All his memories about writing came from Niles. That man had once drawn hungry, help in the sand with a stick, had also grinned mischievously, writing the character for brother, forcing him to recite after him. Ray only knew some characters, but had never seen a book. Through the window, he saw many neatly arranged square objects. A sudden roar jolted him from his thoughts. A red-haired girl leaned out the second-floor window, glaring at him. She identified identified him as the thief who came last time to break the window, but Ray seemed not to hear, only reaching out to lightly touch the cold glass. The girl's roar escalated, threatening that adults would come down soon. Yet Ray's attention was completely drawn to the girl's emotional colors. Angry red, irritated dark green, intensely blending around her. So he stated his observation, "You're really strange." These words added fuel to fire, making the girl's anger explode completely. But Ray had no interest in continuing, directly turning and leaving. Walking unfamiliar streets, he could still feel many scrutinizing gazes. At the alley entrance, three youths' eyes immediately put him on alert. Those eyes were full of wariness, like beasts guarding their territory. Him, a stranger wandering around, was undoubtedly seen as provocation. Ray's gaze grew cold. This place was no different from home. As night fell, he parked the car in a remote, deserted corner. Curled up in the driver's seat, fatigue washing over him. He decided tomorrow he'd explore larger areas. Just as he prepared to rest, subtle movements reached his ears. He opened his eyes, knowing the awaited guests had finally arrived. Several youths held crude weapons. They quietly approached the car. They whispered about how to subdue him and find the trunk key. There must be food inside. The instant one reached the car, Ray moved. The raincoat in his hand whipped out like a whip, precise and vicious. The leader didn't even understand what happened before flying backward. The rest froze in fear. Ray had already leaped from the car like a leopard. Before they could react, he'd taken down another one. Someone raised a pipe to strike down. He easily caught and flung it away with one hand. Ray calmly reminded them to clench their teeth. Moments later, several youths knelt neatly before him, trembling. Ray crossed his arms, looking down at them, coldly questioning how many streets they'd actually occupied. They bit their teeth, refusing to speak no matter what, until a fist grazed past their cheeks again. He trembled and said 3. Ray pressed for specific numbers, and they randomly reported some digits, but the green glow in their chests exposed restlessness, anxiety, and fear. Without hesitation, Ray stomped hard on his hand. Piercing screams echoed through the night sky, terrifying the other two. Ray turned to the next target. That one was scared witless, spilling everything in one breath. They'd actually occupied 14 street blocks with 52 members total. Their leader was named Cedric, base set in an abandoned factory. He asked about the leader's specific orders. They said the leader ordered to just leave him breathing. The goal was stealing food, and they'd keep watching his movements. Before he finished speaking, someone leaped from the car roof behind with a knife. Ray didn't turn around, faint blue magic light radiating from his body. In an instant, a strange gale rose from nowhere, sand and stones filling the air. The attacker screamed, covering his eyes, his attack instantly collapsing. Immediately after, his body took heavy blows in multiple places. Everyone was stunned. Ray walked to that person, grabbing his hair and lifting him up, telling him to inform the boss. He wasn't the only one watching from the shadows. The next day, Ray walked the unfamiliar streets of District 49. Today, he wanted to seek magical knowledge from books. Perhaps within them lay clues related to his power. 3 youths suddenly blocked his path, claiming they wanted to talk. Ray recognized them as being with yesterday's group, but they grinned, saying the boss really appreciated his skills. The youth pulled out a note, but embarrassingly discovered he couldn't read, and his followers behind him were also illiterate. Ray wordlessly snatched the note and read it himself. This action left the 3 thugs dumbstruck. A street thug could read? The note had a simple invitation: become my subordinate, meals guaranteed. Ray ignored the content, instead asking how they selected their leader. Hearing the answer that fighting determined the strongest, he immediately decided. He turned and told them to lead the way. He'd personally meet that boss. They came to the abandoned factory called the base. Passing through the empty foyer, the scene in the depths opened up. Dozens of hostile gazes focused squarely on him. A young man sat with his back to him on a shabby sofa. That person stood and approached, introducing himself as Cedric. Though young, his eyes carried beast-like ferocity and desire for control. Ray calmly gave his name, then noticed something wrong. The ring on his finger was emitting unusually powerful magic. Cedric sat back on the sofa, pretending generosity as he invited him to sit. Behind him was the oppressive encirclement of his underlings, their intentions obvious. Ray thought inwardly, his peer in age, yet leadership not to be underestimated. Cedric smiled as he sized him up, praising his courage and asking his origins. When Ray said he came from distant District 50, the whole place erupted. No one believed someone could traverse such a long distance alone, much less traveling from downstream to upstream. Cedric suppressed the commotion, believing Ray was more qualified to join. He excitedly described his vision. Their gang would merge into a famous upstream organization. Once they gathered enough people, they'd turn over and become part of MONOCLE. He was confident, believing this was an opportunity to rise no one could refuse. Ray listened, only saying blandly it sounded interesting. The condition to join was simple, but he had a principle. He couldn't take orders from someone weaker than himself. Dead silence instantly enveloped the scene. Cedric's rage was instantly ignited. He questioned whether Ray was looking down on him. Ray's stated strength was the standard determining everything. Cedric's subordinate couldn't hold back, rushing out first to shout, but Cedric grabbed his throat in one motion. His face instantly turned purple. He most detested people interrupting when he spoke. Ray keenly detected red magic wrapping around his entire body. That wasn't Cedric's own power. His ring was continuously releasing magic that enhanced violent emotions. Ray's subordinate behind him said this kind of lesson usually drew blood. Ray imperceptibly moved his finger, attempting to block the ring's magic flow. The instant the magic connection broke, Cedric's movement suddenly stopped. The fury in his eyes receded like a tide. He even turned, showing a smile, apologizing for his earlier excitement. Ray had a thought. He wanted to see more clearly, so he spoke again, tone flat as he repeated that provocation. Cedric's string of reasons snapped in response, rage sweeping over again. His subordinates were scared witless. Ray completely understood. The ring influenced its host's emotions. Magic was cut off again, and Cedric calmed down once more. Ray took the opportunity to propose a wager with the boss position as stakes. If he lost, he'd follow Cedric's orders from then on. This proposal excited Cedric. He arranged a week later to fight it out before everyone in all the districts. Ray readily agreed, then asked about the ring's origin. Cedric claimed after beating him he'd naturally know the answer, though he believed that day would never come. The next day, Ray walked the streets. He still pondered that strange ring. A sharp sound suddenly struck from behind his head. Without turning, he caught the stone block. Thugs with clubs surrounded him. On the other end, someone with an iron hammer also blocked the retreat. They shouted this was their turf, they'd teach him a lesson. Ray couldn't be bothered with talk, directly hooking his finger, signaling them to come at him together. The fight quickly ended, only leaving groaning sounds on the ground. Now wherever he went, fights coming to his door never stopped. The battle pact with Cedric had obviously spread throughout the district. People from other districts viewed him as an intruder, wanting to jointly suppress him. Ray didn't care. This was exactly the result he intentionally guided. Magic was being used more skillfully in actual combat. The higher the proficiency, the faster the casting, the less consumption. Constant provocation triggering fights was the best practice ground. Just then, he suddenly turned toward the empty street, speaking to the air, questioning that hidden observer just how long they'd keep watching. A person wearing a hat and glasses hesitantly appeared. They looked at his gray hair and cold face, trembling as they suspected he was a hunter. Ray quickly assessed them. Built thinner and weaker than peers. Didn't look like a fighter, yet dared follow him here alone. He walked straight over, coldly telling them to remove the glasses. The boy backed away frantically, waving his hands denying his intentions. Ray stopped, using his gaze to inquire about their real purpose. The boy's name was Philip. He nervously psyched himself up, saying he had an important proposal. Philip led Ray to a remote area on the city's east side. Along the way, Philip mentioned that resounding title, Hunter. That was the moniker people gave him after he taught villains lessons everywhere. Finally, they stopped before an inconspicuous white building. The instant he pushed open the door, the boiling voices and scene left Ray frozen. Inside was full of children, running, jumping, arguing, working, full of chaotic vitality. Philip proudly introduced this as his Philip restaurant. The scale far exceeded imagination, sheltering over 100 children. Ray immediately noticed the children's common trait. Most were young in age or thin in build. Philip nodded, praising his observation, and explained the reason. This mining area had frequent accidents, leaving many helpless orphans. But precisely because of this, there were also many jobs needing child labor. Philip didn't clash directly with the local gangs, but chose to trade with them. He paid a portion of money in exchange for letting the children work. He called himself a middleman, providing shelter, but not charity. Ray looked at this massive base, hard to imagine how it was built. Just then a boy named Jonathan ran over. He came to pay the monthly rent. Philip efficiently collected the money, then carefully recorded it in his notebook. Sensing Ray's gaze, he passed that manual over. Flipping through it, Ray glimpsed a page with his crude portrait. Noted beside it, Hunter, expressionless, extremely terrifying, approach cautiously. Ray calmly pointed out he'd done quite a bit of investigation on him. Philip didn't expect him to read, embarrassedly apologizing repeatedly. He explained he just liked observing people, no ill intent. But Ray returned the notebook, admitting he wasn't angry because of it. Philip breathed a sigh of relief, leading him toward a room deep in the building. Two men at the door cast wary looks, saying outsiders entering. Philip smiled, showing Ray's identity, that famous hunter. Their attitude immediately changed, clearing the path. Behind the door was a neat and elegant world. Philip locked the just collected rent in a cabinet, discussing business principles. He said money could be earned again, but once trust was lost, it was hard to restore. Ray looked at him, completely unable to see this was a youth similar to himself. He directly asked what exactly he wanted to propose. Philip took a deep breath, fear and determination intertwining. He gathered courage, formally proposing a request to cooperate, hoping after Ray defeated Cedric, he could become his business partner. Ray didn't answer immediately, only silently observing him. Philip's chest churned with brave yellow and a small amount of fearful black. Ray asked back, why was he certain he wouldn't lose? Philip answered decisively, relying on his intuition for reading people. He said he was good at observing people from details, understanding their essence. For instance, Ray's gaze always fell on people's chests during conversations, perhaps harboring some psychological trauma toward eyes or expressions. Ray's heart shook, continuing to pursue the question. Philip continued listing examples. He'd step with his right foot first when turning, and that fighting style of calmly analyzing opponents before striking. This was the first time someone dissected Ray's behavior so meticulously. Previously, others' gazes only held fear, disgust, or distance. For a long time, he could barely feel emotions beyond anger and sorrow. At this moment, a thought quietly grew. Perhaps this youth was different. Maybe he could help him touch more sealed emotions. Philip was still nervously analyzing winning probabilities, listing reasons, but Ray straightforwardly said he accepted the proposal. He'd set the condition details, only warning not to try taking advantage. Philip's face bloomed with a brilliant smile, agreeing repeatedly. Before leaving, Ray proposed an additional condition. He valued Philip's extensive network of connections in this area, asking him to help find something he was seeking. 2 days later, the mechanic chattered endlessly under the scorching sun. Ray remained silent throughout, not responding to his words. The man suddenly asked him to help with a tool. Ray saw the wrench on the toolbox. He imperceptibly moved his finger using magic. The wrench and nuts quietly floated to the mechanic's side. The man turned and found the tools, thinking his memory was failing. The car was finally fixed. The mechanic proudly mentioned he'd secretly used the best parts. Ray thanked him briefly, but the man said it was for Philip. In his heart, Philip was the benefactor who gave them work. Ray discovered Philip's popularity was truly unexpectedly good. Before leaving, the mechanic handed over a note Philip had entrusted. It contained information difficult to convey verbally, requiring him to see it personally. Ray returned to his car and carefully read the unfolded note. He recalled 2 days ago he'd asked Philip to gather intelligence on magicians. The other had confidently agreed at the time. His efficiency was indeed high. However, the note recorded only strongmen or people who ate bread stone-faced. This useless information left Ray feeling helpless, but one record among them caught his attention. He decided to personally hit the streets and verify these suspicious individuals one by one. Following the addresses, he saw a chef carrying cargo walking briskly. After careful observation, he silently crossed off that name. People on the list were eliminated one by one, finally leaving only the last one. According to the description, it was a solitary man living in a basement. The most crucial intelligence, he'd miraculously avoided an accident once. A water pipe falling from upstairs suddenly changed direction due to a gale, and that man, facing the danger, showed absolutely no surprise. Ray determined in his heart this man was most likely a magician. Just as he prepared to search for him, a commotion attracted him. 2 boys stood before Bolonica bookstore, discussing with ill intent. They came to throw stones every day, seemingly instructed to harass the shop owner. One boy raised a stone, this time aiming at the second-floor window. He claimed they'd force this family to sell the shop and leave. Just then, the red-haired girl leaned out and roared angrily downward. She cursed them as bastards, ordering them to get lost immediately. But Ray keenly detected her courage was only a disguise. In those violent emotional fluctuations, mixed with large amounts of fearful magic, the boys weren't afraid at all, instead letting out piercing laughter. Then, a stone struck hard on the wall beside her head. The boy exposed her disguise, knowing only old people and children were in the shop, telling her to shut up and get out of this building obediently. Ray frowned, feeling somewhat displeased. Another boy raised a stone again, viciously aiming at her face. Ray quickly extended his hand, intending to use magic to intercept that stone. An unexpected surge of magic suddenly erupted. That power didn't come from him, but originated from the girl on the second floor. The stone flying toward her fell to the ground. The boy who threw the stone froze, completely not understanding what happened. The girl bit her teeth tightly, yet her eyes had already filled with tears. This girl was actually the magician Ray was seeking. The sudden strange wind greatly confused the 2 boys. Not believing it, they decided to try throwing again. 2 stones were violently thrown simultaneously, rushing straight at her. She desperately closed her eyes, thinking this time she definitely couldn't dodge. At the critical moment, Ray finally acted. An even fiercer wind than before suddenly whipped up, forming a barrier. 1 stone precisely flew back, hitting the face of the boy who threw it. Before the other could react, his cheek also took a heavy blow. Only then did Ray emerge from the shadows, tossing the stone. He looked up at the girl by the window, softly saying, "Long time no see." Bolonica was both shocked and delighted, her cheeks blushing uncontrollably. In the end, the 2 boys were thoroughly taught a lesson. She bowed sincerely in thanks, grateful he saved the bookstore and herself. Ray indicated he actually had something to ask. They both spoke simultaneously, asking similar questions. He asked if she was a magician, she asked if he'd used magic. The atmosphere became somewhat awkward, and she quickly invited him inside to talk. Entering the warm bookstore, Ray curiously looked around. The girl smiled, introducing herself. Her name was Bolonica. Ray also briefly gave his name. She apologized for yelling at him at their last meeting, having misunderstood then. Ray expressed understanding, while inwardly delighted. He'd wanted to learn magical knowledge, yet directly encountered a magician. After sitting down, Ray directly asked how she learned magic. She said it was taught by the grandfather who adopted her and her brothers. Ray's eyes lit up, immediately pressing whether grandfather also knew magic. After receiving affirmative confirmation, he urgently requested to meet grandfather. Bolonica showed difficulty. She needed to check grandfather's condition first. Just then, she noticed the wound by his ear, crying out in alarm. She nervously leaned close, saying leaving it alone would leave a scar. Warm fingers gently approached his ear, bringing a strange sensation. Soft white light overflowed from her fingertips. The wound rapidly healed. She She breathed a sigh of relief, saying it was done, but he excitedly asked how she did that. He saw it, she just used white magic. That was power he could never drive no matter what. White magic only responded to care and devotion. That was a realm forever beyond reach for someone like him who couldn't empathize. But Bolonica said she'd never heard of white magic. Only then did Ray recall Niles saying magicians' naked eyes couldn't see magic. Bolonica thought a moment, tentatively asking if he meant regeneration element. She explained healing magic invoked regeneration elements. Their types were very numerous, totaling at least over 100. Ray was internally shocked. He'd gained entirely new knowledge. He became even more eager to meet that grandfather. Bolonica told him to wait while she ran upstairs to check. Left alone in the bookstore, Ray carefully browsed the shelves. Looking at expensive books, he dared not touch them. Suddenly realizing he hadn't bathed in months, his body was full of odor. Remembering she'd leaned so close earlier, did she not smell it, or was she enduring? Just then his gaze swept across the desk. Several thick notebooks attracted him. One title made his pupils suddenly constrict. It clearly read, "On the Causes of Black Rain Expansion." Bolonica rushed downstairs but didn't see Ray's figure. He suddenly appeared from behind, scaring her so she nearly jumped. Ray directly inquired whether there were books about magic here. He added he'd already looked around once but hadn't found any. Bolonica was quite surprised he could read and search quickly, then explained grandfather was sleeping soundly, couldn't be disturbed temporarily. With a trace of shyness, she softly invited him to visit again tomorrow. Ray nodded in agreement, then turned preparing to leave. But Bolonica wanted to know why he insisted on meeting grandfather. Ray's hand on the door paused. He finally said he was searching for the rainbow. That afternoon, Ray sat in a restaurant carefully studying clues. The information showed the target man lived across the street, his movements extremely regular. He went out and returned punctually at fixed times every morning and evening. The provider's signature at the end of the intelligence caught Ray's attention. A waiter named Johnny happened to bring food. He was the intelligence provider. Johnny proactively said this meal was his treat, appearing exceptionally excited. He excitedly called Ray the great hero in weak children's hearts. Ray took the opportunity to ask about the accuracy of that man's schedule. Johnny guaranteed almost 100% punctual, like a living clock. Then he was called away by the shop owner to work. Ray looked at the wall clock. Still 1 hour until the estimated time. He could only suppress his anxious heart and begin silently waiting. When the hour hand pointed to 7, that figure appeared on time outside the window. Ray's pupils suddenly contracted, his heart sinking heavily. That man's chest also had 2 familiar rings. This undoubtedly proved he was indeed a magician. Ray immediately threw down payment and rushed out, heading straight for that basement. He estimated the man had a 1-hour window. He must seize the opportunity. The dim basement entrance, filled with stale and unsettling atmosphere. The door was indeed locked tight, but this couldn't stop his determination to seek truth. He extended his hand, concentrating to begin driving magic. Colored glimmer spontaneously flowed toward the keyhole. A soft click, the door opened. Even Ray himself was surprised by this unexpected success. He shook off doubt, quickly infiltrating inside to search. Large amounts of crumpled letter paper in the trash attracted his attention. The pieced together information revealed a loser expelled by an organization. The letter mentioned bloodstone and sacrificing 66 orphans. Ray immediately recalled what Cedric had mentioned about that organization, and this man obviously had deep connections with that organization. Then, a box emitting ominous red light was discovered by him. Inside was filled with rubies, identical to the one on Cedric's ring. He tried casting spells using this gemstone. The flames became unprecedentedly vivid. The power amplification alarmed him, but this wasn't a pleasant discovery. Just then, footsteps suddenly approached from outside the door. Ray's mental alarm rang loudly, quickly extinguishing the flame to hide. The man cursed as he pushed through the door, complaining he forgot his wallet. He muttered to himself, saying once this matter was done he could return to the organization, then mumbled about buying more food to stockpile. Hearing him leave again, Ray was just about to sigh in relief, but those footsteps stopped without warning. The man used a mocking tone saying he forgot something. The next second, his face suddenly thrust toward Ray's hiding place. Without the slightest hesitation, Ray swung his knife at him. The man dodged hastily, still leaving a long bloody mark on his face. He mistook Ray for an assassin sent by the organization to clean house. Ray attacked again, intending to subdue him first, then force information. However, the next scene left him stunned. The opponent actually caught the sharp blade with bare hands, his strength shockingly great. The man mocked him for daring to use a knife on an adult, truly not knowing death. Ray withdrew the knife and retreated, immediately understanding the reason. The opponent concentrated, magic on his hands, using magic to defend against attacks. Just then, the man conjured a massive scythe from thin air. He said earlier was just holding back. This time he'd tear him to shreds completely. Ray dodged while rapidly analyzing the opponent's magic in his mind. He clearly memorized that magic's color combination and flow ratio. When the scythe struck down again, Ray also steadily caught the blade barehanded. The man was shocked speechless. This was clearly his original defensive magic. Rage made his attacks fiercer, his eyes glowing with crazed red light. However, in pure combat technique, he was ultimately slightly inferior. Ray's blade once again cut through his skin, blood splattering. But the man became more convinced this was that rumored assassin in the organization. They said that person possessed the terrifying ability to imitate other other's magic. Before he finished speaking, Ray's knife had already pierced through his palm. Ray lowered his voice, ordering him to honestly answer all questions. But the man only laughed crazily, completely unable to communicate normally. Ray realized he could no longer obtain intelligence from this person. But the man erupted with final madness, wanting to prove his abilities. A massive flame ring suddenly rose, surrounding him layer by layer. He called himself Blood Eye Bart, vowing to burn the assassin before him. Violent magic rotated with the fire ring, injecting into his every blood vessel. Ray sensed extreme danger, immediately using magic to protect his whole body. He instantly constructed a colored barrier, blocking the surging flames. The man laughed madly in the fire, mocking whether the assassin could only defend. Attacks grew fiercer. Ray knew the barrier couldn't hold much longer. The opponent merged with the flames, making close combat impossible. Just then, the man's magic surged again, the fire escalating. Ray made a snap decision. He must extinguish the fire first. Seeing him remove the defensive barrier, the man was shocked. The next second, clear water droplets appeared from nowhere in the sweltering air. The man discovered in horror the opponent could simultaneously control another element. Water wrapped around Ray's fist, transforming into a surging water column striking out. The man finally realized the person before him was definitely not the organization's assassin, but his questions were already completely swallowed by overwhelming waves. After the battle ended, Ray returned to ground level, feeling dizzy. Warm nosebleed flowed down. This was the after effect of mental exhaustion. He felt no joy in his heart, only heaviness. A Bart called Blood Eye was already this powerful. Then his enemy, just how terrifying would he be? With his current self, revenge was absolutely impossible, but he deeply believed he could definitely become stronger. Then he reached into his pocket. Several seized bloodstones lay in his palm. The next morning, Ray came to the bookstore as promised. Bolonica warmly welcomed him in, her gaze falling on him. She noticed he'd changed from yesterday's raincoat, now wearing white. Ray only coldly responded, saying that old coat was already discarded. After last night's confrontation, wearing that coat again was dangerous. Bolonica led him upstairs, saying she'd informed grandfather of his assistance. At the stair landing, Ray keenly sensed peering gazes. Two small figures hid behind the door, curiously looking out. The instant their eyes met his, they shrank back in fright. Bolonica somewhat awkwardly explained those were orphans grandfather adopted. Ray almost without thinking speculated, for teaching magic. Bolonica's eyes widened instantly, amazed by his perceptiveness, but Ray found it natural. Otherwise, why bring back these orphans? Bolonica led him into the room. Inside, a white-haired, white-bearded elder sat upright on the bed. His gaze slowly moved over, landing on Ray. He dismissed Bolonica. Only the two of them remained in the room. After a brief silence, the elder spoke first to give thanks. Ray only responded indifferently that it wasn't a big deal, but his gaze was attracted by the strange scene on the elder's chest. His chest had rich colors, with 4 rings outside. Those were passionate emotions condensed from a lifetime: anger and calm. Countless emotional fluctuations left imprints here, forming the vessel of the soul. Facing such an existence, ordinary observation would completely fail. The elder inquired about his origins. Ray fell into silence. That was obviously a heavy past he was unwilling to mention. Grandpa Graham didn't force it, smiling as he proposed a suggestion. They'd play a game. The winner could question the loser. Ray's body instantly tensed, having an instinctive reaction to magic. The elder nodded appreciatively, saying his perceptiveness was indeed outstanding. He asked Ray if he could feel the currently flowing magic. Ray gave an affirmative answer, but was even more shocked internally. In the elder's hand was complex light flow of white mixed with deep gray. Grandpa Graham explained this was a stable element called maintain. It ensured magic wasn't interfered with, one of the hardest types to control. But Ray asked what that other element was. Grandpa Graham's expression instantly changed, showing incredible disbelief. He confirmed again whether Ray could perceive both elements. Ray nodded. In his heart, it was unmistakably clear those were 2 colors: deep gray and even deeper gray. After brief dead silence, Grandpa Graham burst into resounding laughter. He'd painstakingly searched, screening hundreds and thousands of children without success. At this moment, at life's end, he'd encountered this priceless raw gem. Just then, Ray pressed for that other element's name, but the elder kept it mysterious. Only winning the game would reveal the answer. The rules were simple. Compete for that ball composed of dual elements in the middle. Whoever pulled it to their hand and caught it stably would be the victor. For fairness, he positioned the ball's initial location closer to Ray. Ray knew his odds weren't great, but still accepted the challenge. With a start signal, the light ball disappeared at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Ray stared in shock at the opponent's hand. The ball already lay steadily in Grandpa Graham's palm, incredibly fast. The elder asked the first question: who was his teacher? Ray answered truthfully, his magic came from self-teaching. Grandpa Graham was shocked again. Ray's heart burned with unwillingness, urging the next round. The game continued. Ray missed the energy ball again. Grandpa Graham won easily. Emphasizing this tested the skill of controlling magic. Ray clenched his fists, understanding continuing to lose would gain him nothing. He had to change strategy, otherwise he'd only be completely controlled by the opponent's rhythm. A new round began. He secretly mobilized his other hand to gather power. Just as Grandpa Graham was about to touch the ball, an interference precisely struck. Ray successfully seized the energy ball. Grandpa could only helplessly shake his head. he fulfilled the promise, letting Ray ask the question he really wanted. Ray asked something that had puzzled him long: what is magic? Grandpa pondered a moment, explaining magic was the basic element constituting all things. It was formless and without quality, yet could be perceived through phenomena like wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. Only extremely few people in the world were born with the precious gift of sensing magic. But sensing didn't equal controlling. These were two different realms. Grandpa further explained control meant separating and recombining magic elements. The more one understood themselves, the more likely they could become an excellent magician. He spoke an ancient maxim: only by honestly facing yourself will magic respond. These words echoed repeatedly in Ray's heart. The next round quickly began. Ray actually seized the ball once again. Grandpa Graham was truly surprised this time. This child's learning ability was too strong. Ray immediately pressed. What purpose did magicians' chest rings serve exactly? Grandpa explained rings were containers storing magic, automatically absorbing and refining it. Refined magic was purer, also easier to safely control and use. If directly using unrefined magic from the air long term, the consequences were severe, at best making people drowsy and silly, laughing or inexplicably sad, at worst causing furious loss of control. These symptoms accumulating would ultimately lead to permanent mental abnormality. Cedric's irritable face flashed through Ray's mind. Could emotions and unrefined magic mutually influence, devouring each other? This also explained why he wasn't affected. Because he once had faint emotions. He tentatively asked whether anyone could be immune to poisoning directly using airborne magic. Grandpa admitted he'd never seen it, but that would be very terrifying. Because airborne magic was infinitely inexhaustible. Users would have infinite possibilities. Just then, Grandpa suddenly changed topics, asking Ray if he had dreams. Ray's gaze darkened, his enemies and departed friends' faces surfacing in his mind. He answered in a low voice. He had people he wanted to kill, also people he wanted to save. This answer made Grandpa silent for a moment, then solemnly asked Ray whether he wanted to learn magic from him. Ray's heart instantly filled with vigilance and countless questions. A four-ring magician? Why teach a street orphan? But Grandpa seemed to see through his doubts, warmly saying he asked for no return. Ray struggled a moment. Finally, his thirst for power overwhelmed everything. Ray nodded in agreement. Grandpa showed a gratified smile, then called Balanica in. The girl outside the door was startled, blushing as she defended she wasn't eavesdropping. Grandpa expressed understanding, having her sit down together. He would tell of knowledge regarding the rainbow. The rainbow was a legend passed down through ages, countless people seeking it. Regarding its true identity, opinions varied, but all accounts had one consensus. They said whoever found the rainbow would become an existence rivaling the divine. Ray immediately associated it with that monocled magician. Balanica was about to ask a question. A stone suddenly broke through the window, the rock flying straight at Balanica. The girl was completely frightened, stiff, frozen in place. At the critical moment, a hand steadily caught the flying stone. Ray held Balanica tightly in his arms, blocking all danger. She stared in shock with wide eyes, seeing broken glass actually suspended in midair. Shocked in her heart, could this be legendary wind magic? Yet Ray's expression was terribly grim, rage churning in his eyes. He'd clearly given sufficient warning already. It seemed those people still wouldn't give up on the bookstore's deed. Grandpa Graham thanked him again, his voice full of apology. If not for his severe illness, this should have been his burden to bear. He had Balanica first treat the wound on Ray's hand. Balanica treated his wound, then carefully bandaged it, deeply afraid it would leave an ugly scar. But Ray thought leaving a scar might make him look more manly. Grandpa Graham softly reminded her not to use airborne magic anymore. After bandaging, Ray inquired how long the harassment had lasted. Grandpa sighed, saying over a month already. Someone must be behind it. Ray asked if he truly planned to give up. Grandpa's eyes were full of struggle and reluctance. He never thought of selling. Half a year ago, the bookstore opened. Balanica brought her brothers to deliver flowers, smiling brilliantly. Back then, he was full of expectations for research and heritage, but his condition grew increasingly grave. The bookstore now relied entirely on his granddaughter. If he died, a bookstore with only children would become perfect prey. So better to close shop early, arrange a future for the children. Balanica, who was cleaning, heard these words and froze completely. She suddenly interrupted excitedly, shouting, "No way. This bookstore was Grandpa's dream since childhood. Absolutely couldn't be sold." Grandpa gently comforted her. Things don't always go as wished in life. Balanica's tears broke free, crying that she didn't want to. She didn't want to see the bookstore close, much less wanted Grandpa to disappear. Grandpa's eyes also moistened. Pink magic filled the air. Ray quietly watched all this. Ominous black rain fell outside the window again. Grandpa fell into deep sleep amid drowsiness. Balanica explained Grandpa had eternal sleep syndrome. Now he could only wake 2 or 3 hours a day. She lifted her head, forcing a smile, arranging for Ray to come again tomorrow. Ray put on Balanica's raincoat, preparing to leave. Balanica softly bid him farewell. But Ray suddenly recalled another girl who loved crying, Josephine. Though he didn't know how to comfort, he knew he should say something. So he turned back, stiffly saying, "Don't worry, everything would be resolved." Balanica froze. Tears once again poured out uncontrollably. She wiped tears while thanking him, her voice choking. Ray walked into the rain, pondering those attackers' whereabouts. This district was Jeppa Gang's territory. It seemed those people earlier were also their subordinates. With black rain descending, they'd probably all return to their lair. He changed plans. He decided to find Philip first. He'd heard Philip had connections with other groups, perhaps could facilitate introductions. Nearly there, he suddenly stopped sharply. The group gathered ahead was actually Cedric's subordinates. He hid in the shadows, hearing them complain the captain wasn't done yet. Following their line of sight, the person in the shipping container was Cedric himself. He was beating someone, and that figure was... Ray's pupils suddenly shrank, seeing clearly the blood-covered person on the ground. It was Philip he was looking for, his glasses long gone. Cedric cursed, the ring on his knuckle gleaming coldly. Every time he saw people like Philip, he couldn't control his rage. Just then, continuous screams from subordinates came from behind him. Cedric turned back in shock, only seeing Ray kick through the door entering. Ray stepped into the container, coldly calling out his name. Cedric saw who it was and actually smiled, his tone playful as he asked whether Ray also had business with this kid. And beneath his feet, Philip was already unrecognizable. Ray wasn't someone who valued sentiment heavily, yet he'd firmly remember the help others gave him. His principle was simple, that was to repay kindness without fail. Seeing this, Cedric mocked him, asking if he was eager to duel right now. Ray keenly detected the opponent had changed, his magic container clearly expanded. That ring's glow was also more vivid and glaring than before. Ray calmly explained he wasn't here to fight, just heard the commotion. He questioned why the other was so heavy-handed with Philip. Only then did Cedric realize they knew each other. He guessed Philip had also proposed strange cooperation to Ray. Then he suddenly erupted, expressing his hatred for such parasites who only clung to the strong. Saying this, he was about to charge up and beat Philip again, but Ray instantly extended his hand, violently slamming him against the wall. Dangerous red light flashed in Cedric's eyes. Then using the momentum to countercharge, fist striking fiercely. Ray neither dodged nor avoided, catching it barehanded. Cedric was somewhat surprised, ordering him not to meddle. Ray asked why he was being so ruthless. Cedric shook off his hand, roaring angrily at the air. He said the sight of weaklings made him too sick to endure. Ray pointed out this wasn't legitimate reason to harm others. Cedric punched the wall, threatening him to get lost immediately, warning if he didn't want the same fate, stay out of his territory. Philip was the perfect example. Ray quietly gripped a bloodstone in his hand. He knew using it might easily resolve the current predicament, but uncertain of side effects, he absolutely couldn't use it rashly. If that's the case, he needed another approach. He crossed his arms, mocking the opponent's intimidation method was stupid. Cedric warily told him not to get any ideas. Ray continued analyzing, acting where no one saw was meaningless. If it were him, he'd choose to act in front of everyone. Cedric was immediately ignited, admitting it was a good idea. Ray took the opportunity to propose. Duel day was the perfect timing, because District 49 strong would all gather then. Cedric was tempted but worried Philip would flee midway. Ray assured him not to worry, he'd personally bring the person over. Cedric smiled, feeling he didn't seem like someone who'd break promises. He opened the door preparing to leave but left one final threat, warning Ray if he dared let Philip escape, he'd have to replace Philip and die. Only Ray and the dying Philip remained in the room. Ray hurriedly crouched down, checking his condition. Philip trembled all over, his throat only producing hoarse whimpers. Ray frowned, realizing the injuries were worse than imagined. Late at night, Chris was startled by sudden knocking. However, the instant he opened the door, he was too shocked to close his mouth. Ray stood at the door carrying blood-covered Philip on his back, gasping for breath, using his last strength to seek help. The ominous black rain continued falling. Ray sat alone outside the hospital room waiting, until someone came out telling him Philip had finally awakened. He entered the room, finding Philip's condition better than imagined. Philip optimistically thanked him for saving his life. Ray asked about Cedric's reason for attacking. Philip explained he was scouting new shop locations when he ran into him. Ray pointed out this was bold, unlike his usual timid style. Philip admitted he only had courage when making money, but Ray discovered the golden yellow representing material desire in Philip's chest wasn't much. That heavier pink spoke of different emotions. Ray guessed he and Cedric already knew each other. Philip paused, admitting they were indeed childhood friends. They once depended on each other on the streets. Both were bullied weaklings. Until they jointly ran this restaurant, life finally became stable. Back then, Philip was full of longing, excitedly planning the future. But Cedric's eyes never held even a trace of joy. He detested this hiding lifestyle. Felt like he lived like a rat. After work, he'd exercise his body maniacally. Half a year ago, he ultimately chose to leave their jointly built restaurant. Since then, constantly brawling on the streets as if becoming a different person. And he rapidly grew stronger. His current strength was incredibly great. Ray suddenly asked about Cedric's ring, whether he originally had it. Philip recalled it was only after Cedric became captain that he wore it. Before, he had zero interest in accessories. Ray asked again, was his temper getting increasingly irritable? Philip was again startled by Ray's perceptiveness, nodding yes. All the clues connected in Ray's mind. He seemed to see downtrodden Cedric meeting a man in a hat. The other showed a dangerous smile, handing over a blood-red gemstone ring. Power and madness. Perhaps this was the transaction action that began then. Philip's voice interrupted his thoughts, trembling with sobs. He was shocked Cedric truly wanted to kill him today. The pink and Ray's lenses grew heavier. That was sadness and nostalgia. He suddenly proposed having Philip talk with Cedric. Philip was stunned, thinking this was complete fantasy. But Ray asked if he wanted to repair this broken friendship. Struggle and longing appeared on Philip's face. Finally, he made up his mind. If it could be done, he wanted to try. Just then, Ray saw the golden yellow representing courage. He said after the duel ended, he could arrange them to talk. Philip was first moved, then immediately negated the possibility himself. Only 3 major groups people could enter the duel grounds. Small fries like him couldn't. Ray told him not to worry. He'd already reached agreement with Cedric. Philip was grateful to tears, not understanding why Ray helped him this far. Only then did Ray reveal the truth. Cedric's agreement had conditions. If Ray lost in the duel, he'd publicly execute Philip. Philip instantly felt like falling into an ice cave, wishing it was a joke. But Ray shook his head, telling him this was an absolutely true agreement. Ray wanted to comfort desperate Philip. Tone steady as he told him not to fear. He absolutely couldn't lose. Philip barely calmed under his soothing, mustering courage again. But Ray was inwardly satisfied. The plan was advancing smoothly. This way, Philip owed a tremendous favor, so he proposed a second suggestion to Philip. After hearing Ray's plan, Philip was shocked, but Ray emphasized this was a good money-making opportunity. He formally invited Philip to cooperate. Philip's heart violently wavered, feeling these words weren't unreasonable. The audience coming to watch the duel were all 3 major groups' important figures. Other teams' captains would definitely appear. Capital scale would be unprecedentedly massive, but he was still afraid of being torn apart by the angry crowd after success. Ray only said blandly, "Just win against Cedric." As for others, even if 100 came, they wouldn't be his match. That firm, confident gaze injected into Philip's heart like a shot of adrenaline. He was finally persuaded, pulling open a drawer to take out paper and pen, smiling as he passed them over, saying they should first sign a cooperation agreement. 2 days later at the duel venue, the abandoned stadium was packed wall to wall with people. At the fire ring's center, the 2 protagonists faced off, atmosphere tense. Cheers flowed almost one-sidedly toward Cedric's name. Watching gang bosses sat on sofas, expressions amused. Ray was expressionless. Cedric looked like he had victory in hand. Everyone discussed. No one favored the challenger from District 50. They even began pulling out bills, betting on Cedric to win. Some muttered even winning this way wouldn't earn much money, but more claimed they came to watch the arrogant fool get crushed. Ray calmly observed the churning emotional colors on his opponent. That crimson and golden yellow were extreme excitement and greed, but Cedric was searching for Philip, questioning this differed from the agreement. Ray told him not to worry. Philip would arrive on time. Just as he finished speaking, Chris pushed wheelchair-bound Philip in. The crowd immediately erupted, not understanding why restaurant people dared come watch. Cedric roared for the whole venue to quiet down, announcing Philip was his guest. He grinned, saying after the duel ended he'd let everyone see a good show. Ray and Philip quickly exchanged a confirming glance. Just as Cedric announced start, Philip suddenly interrupted loudly. He raised a box, claiming he also wanted to bet. The instant the box opened, all eyes were firmly captured. Inside was packed full with dizzying massive amounts of cash. Philip announced loudly, betting his entire fortune, over $2 million, on Ray. This was Ray's second proposal 2 days ago. Philip betting everything on him would trigger others to frantically bet on Cedric, and at this moment his plan was becoming reality perfectly. Red-eyed people competed to bet their entire fortunes on Cedric. Cedric questioned whether Ray instigated this, then smiled twisted, viewing it as tribute and submission. He impatiently urged ringing the bell, announcing the duel's start. The bell barely finished when Cedric charged like a beast with swinging fists. Ray nimbly dodged, his heart slightly alarmed. The opponent's speed was faster than their last encounter. He precisely pinched Cedric's swinging arm, his other elbow striking fiercely at the opponent's joint. But Cedric erupted with shocking strength, flinging him away. Not only wasn't he angry, he laughed excitedly instead. He repositioned his stance, eyes burning with pure, fanatical fighting spirit, claiming if this was the opponent, fighting with his life on the line was worth it. Ray stared at him deadly, his surrounding aura becoming more tense. Inside the fire ring, Cedric launched fierce attacks again like a crazed beast. His sharp kick was narrowly dodged by Ray, ducking. Ray's counterpunch also carried fierce wind, striking toward the opponent. Cedric dodged sideways, their offense and defense so fast it dazzled eyes. The audience's hearts rose to their throats. Philip nervously wiped sweat, seeing they were currently evenly matched. Cedric let out angry roars, every move carrying deadly killing intent. He raised his leg high, gathering power, suddenly kicking out a heavy, forceful strike. Ray quickly judged, clashing head-on would only waste stamina. He had to find opportunity, first making the opponent lose balance. Seeing the timing, Ray suddenly rushed forward, grabbing Cedric around the waist. Cedric, completely didn't expect this move, instantly pressed to the ground. He struggled hard, fists desperately pounding Ray's back. He forcefully rose using brute strength, trying to reverse the situation. But Ray used the force to fling him away, his whole body crashing back to the ground. The surrounding crowd let out shocked cries, awed by this shocking strength. Philip was even more alarmed, afraid Cedric's bones broke. Everyone discussed, the hunter's ferocity exceeded everyone's expectations. Those who bet on Cedric began feeling uneasy. Those discussions pierced Cedric's ears like needles. Unable to accept imminent defeat's mockery, he pounded the ground and rose. Around him erupted even more intense red magical flames. He screamed Ray's name, charging again. This time his fists and feet were heavier and fiercer than before. Ray nimbly dodged, feeling every strike carried tremendous force. He was forced to block with both hands. The situation became suddenly critical. Continuing passive defense like this, he'd eventually be completely crushed. At the critical moment, Niles's past teachings suddenly flashed through his mind. There was a method that could overcome huge disparities in body type. That was utilizing all the body's joints, executing grappling techniques. Ray deflected a heavy punch, instantly making up his mind. He suddenly spread both arms, seemingly exposing and opening an embrace. The instant Cedric attacked, he fiercely grabbed the opponent's neck, using the momentum for a clean backflip, legs locking on like iron tongs. Cedric was locked tight at the joints, continuously cursing. Ray urged him to give up struggling and concede immediately. These words were like adding fuel to fire, again enraging Cedric. The ring on his finger burst with glaring crimson, actually using brute force, lifting Ray on his back entirely. Ray understood continuing this way, the opponent's body would collapse first. Just then, that ring's glow suddenly fluctuated, seemingly reaching its limit. Cedric's eyes darkened, strength receding like a tide. He finally collapsed powerlessly on the ground, the ring's flames completely extinguished. Ray removed that scorching ring. The battle seemed settled. The crowd erupted, unable to accept Cedric just fainting and losing. They began worrying about their massive bets. Ray judged the opponent had temporarily lost mobility. Philip wheeled over anxiously, but Ray had already acted first. He snatched the money box from the attendant's hands, announcing he'd temporarily safeguard the bait money. However, Cedric let out an unwilling roar at this moment. He swayed as he stood again, refusing to admit defeat's reality, trembling as he declared he was never weak, never lost a fight. But an empty can struck his head then, drawing boos. Garbage and insults fell on him like raindrops, accusing him of making people lose money. Cedric trembled violently all over, dangerous red light surfacing in his eyes again. He felt countless blood-red eyes despising him. In everyone's shocked gazes, he barehanded grabbed a burning fire barrel. Philip sensed something wrong, urgently shouting to stop him, but the fire barrel had already been violently thrown at the packed audience seats. "All go die!" he laughed hysterically. Fierce flames spread explosively, the crowd scattering to flee. Cedric stood at the sea of fire's center, as if completely mad. He laughed crazily in place. He used his last strength to scream, as if proving his existence. Just as he finished, he completely lost consciousness, collapsing on the ground. Ray coldly watched all this, rapidly weighing pros and cons in his heart. If risking to rescue, he and Philip might both perish in flames. He resolutely turned, deciding to leave this collapsing inferno. However, Philip's shout nailed him in place like a nail. Ray turned back in disbelief, seeing Philip desperately dragging Cedric. Philip used all his strength, wanting to drag his unconscious friend toward the wheelchair. That thin body and heavy burden formed cruel contrast. Ray approached, his voice carrying incomprehension and a trace of coldness. Only then did Philip discover he was still there, showing a bitter smile on his face. Ray couldn't understand this near-suicidal behavior. 2 days ago, Cedric had nearly beaten Philip to death. Philip trembled all over, finally opening his mouth to ask him for help. Ray ultimately sighed, extending his hand to help move the person onto the wheelchair. He then questioned, even on the wheelchair, where could they escape to? But Philip told Ray to take Cedric and leave. He was willing to give up all the money he won as payment, even said if Ray could only take one person, that was fine too. That yellow magic flowing around him seemed the manifestation of his determination. Niles's face before death suddenly appeared clearly before his eyes. That man's final mumbling was also telling him to go somewhere better. Ray couldn't help pressing, what benefit could this possibly gain? But Philip shook his head, saying he wasn't doing it for benefits. The reason was so simple, Ray couldn't understand it. Because they were friends. Just because of the word friends it was worth betting life? These two words were like a key, opening the floodgates of his memory. Those children's smiling faces from the past emerged one by one. His sister saved food to give him, smiling, saying because he was a friend. His brother also wanted to give him some, also saying he was a friend. The children mended his worn raincoat, eyes full of sincerity. Niles cared for him like a brother, saying because he was like a younger brother. Most profound was that snowy night when they used expensive medicine to save him. Asking if he knew why, the answer was simply because we're friends. Those words seemed close at hand, yet always separated by a layer of mist. No matter how he reached out, he couldn't truly grasp their meaning. Like that rainy night when everyone left him. He didn't understand understand why he'd rather bear everything in their place. Was Philip also feeling this way right now? He finally took over the wheelchair, but now they'd missed the best escape timing. He suddenly removed his own coat, simply tearing the coat in half, then summoning water element, thoroughly soaking the fabric. Philip stared dumbfounded, finally witnessing magic's existence firsthand. He hurriedly covered his mouth and nose with the wet cloth, hope reigniting in his heart. Perhaps they could use this magic to open a path, extinguishing fires while escaping. But Ray seemed to see through his thoughts, directly extinguishing the fantasy. Magic wasn't infinite. The urgent matter was answering his question. He asked, what exactly did friends mean? Philip looked at the approaching flames, finding this discussion absurd right now. But under Ray's insistent gaze, he could only struggle to organize words. He said friends weren't just people you'd known for a while, more importantly, people you'd unconditionally help and could openly seek help from. In this desperate situation, Ray asked Philip if he'd regret it, but Philip firmly shook his head, no hesitation in his eyes. Just because the other was Cedric, so he wanted to protect him. Ray murmured, repeating these words, protect someone. Before he finished, terrifying breaking sounds came from overhead. A thick steel bar wrapped in flames suddenly crashed down at them. Their pupils shrank, death's shadow instantly enveloped them. Ray thought, this time truly couldn't dodge, but his current mood completely differed from that revenge night. Back then he was full of hatred, only wanting to kill the golem. He thought that was just repaying debt to the dead children, but only now did he truly see clearly his own heart. He wanted to protect those shared daily moments and warmth. The instant his will rose, pure white light suddenly burst from his palm. He raised his hand toward the sky, pure power gushing like a spring. A massive and solid white barrier instantly condensed in the air. The steel bar and fierce flames struck hard against the light wall, resounding. Philip watched dumbstruck, too shocked to speak. Ray himself was also full of surprise, not expecting he could succeed. He turned back, instructing Philip to stay in place and not move, then covered his hand over Philip's injured leg. Gentle white light flowed. The wound actually healed at visible speed. Philip's severe pain dissipated, finding it unbelievable. After recovering, he thanked him repeatedly. He vowed to forever remember this grace of saving him and Cedric. Ray appeared calm on the surface, but was calculating future plans internally. He needed their help and wanted to test magic's limits. Philip inquired how they should leave this sea of fire next, but Ray said no need to go out, just wait for the fire to burn out. At this moment, Cedric was still unconscious. Outside the base, a dark mass of people fell into desperate, dead silence. Their home was burned, their leader's fate unknown, the road ahead completely unclear. The other two organizations' leaders mocked gleefully from the side. They attributed everything to Cedric's reckless actions, then turned and left as if it didn't concern them. The underlings trembled with rage but were powerless to refute. Chris knelt at the exit, falling into deep self-blame and crying. He hated that he abandoned injured Philip to flee alone. Through blurred tears, he saw the exit's flames gradually extinguishing. However, clear and steady footsteps came from the smoke. A pair of feet broke through thick smoke, first appearing in everyone's sight. Chris's eyes widened, pointing there incoherently. Ray's figure leisurely walked out from the black smoke. The crowd instantly erupted, not daring to believe their eyes. Even more shocking, Philip pushed Cedric, closely following behind. Ray stood still, his gaze sweeping across the shocked crowd. He said if anyone still refused to accept it, wanted to fight, he'd take them all on. In dead silence, two people first knelt, lowering their heads. Immediately after, the third, the fourth, spreading like waves. Finally, everyone knelt uniformly before Ray. The setting sun gilded him golden, like a triumphant king. By Philip Restaurant's window, several children nervously crowded together. They saw a dark mass of people surging toward the restaurant. Ray stopped at the door, issuing standby orders to the crowd behind. He prepared to enter alone, but Philip called out to him. Philip turned back, looking at Chris trembling behind the crowd. Chris was startled. Shame and fear made him want to crawl into a hole. He choked, apologizing, repenting for fleeing alone at the fire scene. Philip said he never blamed him. This would forever be their home. Chris couldn't hold back anymore, throwing himself into his arms, crying loudly. Philip hugged him, asking Ray if Chris could enter together. He casually agreed, letting Philip decide for himself. Philip thanked him, praising his broad-mindedness indeed. The underlings behind whispered, did this mean they also had opportunity? Philip, hearing these whispers, couldn't help his lips slightly rising. The door closed behind everyone, temporarily isolating the tense atmosphere. The children inside immediately surrounded them, asking questions all at once. Philip told everyone to clear the way first. The urgent matter was treating the injured. Looking at unconscious Cedric, he worried how to move him to the second floor, but Ray had already walked over, directly bending to steadily lift the person. His movements were crisp and efficient, leaving Philip momentarily stunned. After settling Cedric in the medical room, Philip finally had opportunity to ask the long-suppressed question. He carefully brought up the shocking scene seen at the arena. Ray's answer was simple and direct, admitting he could use magic. Philip immediately understood the other didn't want to discuss this secret much. Ray turned to business, requesting to settle the bet money clearly first. The numbers he reported were precise and fast, somewhat surprising Philip. Then Ray pushed out a stack of money, proposing a new commission. He hoped Philip would help find a new base. Philip pushed up his glasses, his expression becoming serious. He agreed to help search and furnish items, but refused the money. He believed this distribution was unfair, because all credit belonged to Ray. The two pushed the money back and forth. Ray couldn't understand his his insistence, he suddenly fell silent, making Philip's heart tighten. But Ray was observing the magic colors flowing around him. That white representing fear and anxiety far exceeded yellow. He directly asked whether Philip was worrying about him. Philip hurriedly denied, finding this thought simply absurd. In his view, Ray was District 49's most formidable existence. He changed his explanation, saying this was investing in Ray. This reason finally made Ray understand. He nodded. Just then, a child rushed in panicking. Jeepa and Lawson brought all their subordinates, blocking the restaurant entrance. Philip instantly understood. They were hyenas drawn by massive bet money. The other side sent people to monitor long ago, just waiting for them to bring back spoils. Philip worried he'd just experienced a death match. Was his stamina sufficient? But Ray brought up the earlier investment and dividend theory. He pushed open the door, telling Philip the dividend would arrive immediately. Outside the door, surrounded by a dark mass of people, Jeepa and Lawson were standing with arms akimbo, faces full of mockery. Their words were vicious, falsely accusing Arson was to embezzle bet money, demanding Philip hand over all the money, otherwise tonight wouldn't end. Philip angrily wanted to argue, but Ray calmly said okay. He flicked his finger. A coin arced flying toward the two. Clink, the coin rolled into the dirt by their feet. Ray contemptuously said this was the dividend for them. Lawson's face instantly twisted grotesquely. Ray told Philip to hurry back to the restaurant, then stated wanting money required using strength to seize it. Lawson and Jeepa were thoroughly enraged, gripping weapons and charging furiously. Ray understood in his heart his physical condition indeed wasn't ideal, but it didn't matter, because he still held that trump card in his fingers. He didn't hesitate putting on the ring, crimson glow instantly flowing. Ray struck with both hands, simultaneously blocking the fierce attacks from both men. Jeepa's spiked club shattered on impact, wood chips flying. Lawson's iron pipe also bent and deformed. He cursed in terror. Before they could react, Ray's hands had already covered their faces. The two were violently slammed to the ground, unable to move. Silence fell all around. Everyone was dumbstruck. Ray raised his eyes, coldly urging the others to hurry up. The enemies surged forward, attempting to exhaust his stamina with human wave tactics. He was swallowed by the densely packed crowd, the encirclement airtight. However, a violent force suddenly exploded from the center. Under the ring's power enhancement, Ray's movement showed no fatigue. He was like a beast charging into a flock of sheep, striking down opponents one by one. The battle showed a one-sided, overwhelming, crushing momentum. Cedric's former subordinates hid in corners, watching in fear. They couldn't understand why one person could fight so many. Some faces unconsciously revealed expressions close to worship. Companions immediately scolded them, reminding the real captain was Cedric. But rebuttal voices immediately rang out. Cedric had already lost. Some people's long-suppressed dissatisfaction finally showed. At this moment, the enemy leaders issued new orders. They planned to split into two groups, directly attacking the restaurant's vulnerable door. Ray instantly perceived the opponent's intention. He saw several people already charging toward the door. The situation was critical, yet he couldn't be in two places at once. He took a deep breath, swallowing the diffusing red magic into his body. An even more violent power surged through his blood vessels. He roared out orders like he'd lost reason. "Guard that door for me!" This furious roar exploded like thunder in everyone's ears. A miraculous scene occurred. Cedric's former subordinates actually moved. They froze for an instant, then frantically obeyed the hunter's command. Two groups of people instantly collided, brawling before the door. The attackers questioned in shock why they'd help an outsider. Their response was even fiercer: fists, feet, and roars. Upstairs, Philip and the children pressed against the window, watching tensely. The children couldn't believe Cedric's people would actually help. Just then, Philip saw a soul-chilling scene. Several enemies hoisted a massive iron column, charging toward the door. That momentum was enough to completely destroy the fragile doorway. The guards before the door frantically dodged. The iron column whistled toward them. Victory's wild joy already surfaced on the attackers' faces, cheers about to escape. However, the cheers abruptly stopped, becoming terrified gasps. Ray had somehow already flashed before the door, using his body to forcibly block the impact. He actually relied solely on his own strength to withstand that heavy iron column. The enemies screamed crazily, trying to crush him through sheer numbers. Ray growled lowly, channeling all his magic into both arms. The stalemate only lasted seconds before the balance of power began tilting. In everyone's horrified gazes, Ray actually turned the tables. He grabbed the iron column, using terrifying strength to fling the people on the other end away. The iron column crashed to the ground. The remaining enemies trembled all over in fear. Ray's eyes showed fierce light, condensing the last of his strength. The remaining enemies completely collapsed, screaming as they scattered in flight. Ray stood in place, knowing in his heart he'd reached his limit. At this moment, deafening cheers surged from all directions. People fanatically shouted his name, respectfully calling him Lord Hunter. He saw every chest churning with passionate yellow and red. That was the first time he clearly perceived these unfamiliar emotional colors. Though still not fully understanding, this feeling seemed not bad. Philip squeezed through the crowd, worriedly running toward him from behind. At this moment, the string Ray had kept taut completely snapped. He fell straight forward, only one final thought in his mind. This feeling Killing seemed truly not bad after all. Ray fell into a black and white world. He walked bewildered, realizing this might be a dream. A hill piled with garbage blocked his path. Without hesitation, he began climbing up barehanded. Finally standing atop the summit, he raised his head to look at the sky. Blinding white light hung at the black and white world's center. He subconsciously extended his hand, wanting to touch that light, as if it was something both his past and present lacked. Just as his fingertips were about to touch, cracks appeared. Brilliant colors burst from the cracks like a flood, instantly drowning the monotonous black and white, dyeing the entire world. His pupils reflected the brilliant hues, full of shock. Then he jolted awake from the hospital bed. Looking around, he recognized this as the restaurant's medical room. That overly vivid dream left him unsettled. Someone pushed through the door, overjoyed to discover he'd awakened, enthusiastically crowding over, asking with concern. He shook his head, saying he wasn't hungry, only wanted to know how long had passed. Learning he'd actually slept an entire day, he was somewhat surprised. He decided to get out of bed and check the situation outside. Overlooking from the second-floor corridor, the hall was orderly. People were discussing tomorrow's work at District 6. He immediately understood Philip had handled everything. Just then, several former thugs awkwardly approached. They patted their muscles, wanting to help with physical labor. The restaurant members gladly accepted this goodwill. Watching them carry boxes together, the atmosphere was unexpectedly harmonious. Ray's gaze swept across those thugs' chests. Blue-gray mist lingered there, representing guilt. When he walked down the stairs, he was immediately discovered and surrounded. Everyone talked over each other, expressing concern and admiration. Some even began asking strange, personal questions. Just as he felt helpless, a scream broke the commotion. Everyone looked over together. They saw Cedric rush out of the sick room, gripping a gleaming scalpel tightly in his hand. His gaze locked crazily on Ray, charging straight at him. Guards tried to stop him, but Ray calmly told them to stand back. Cedric roared, leaping down from the stairs. Ray stood in place, completely still, only gazing at him. The blade tip stopped abruptly when almost touching skin. Cedric's hand trembled violently. He still cursed viciously from his mouth, saying he'd kill Ray. Ray suddenly extended his hand, grabbing his trembling wrist, then guided that blade tip toward his own neck. In his vision, Cedric's magic was completely clear. Without a trace of killing intense red, he didn't want to kill at all. Cedric seemed exposed, violently shaking off his hand. In despair, he turned the blade, stabbing toward his own throat. Everyone present had their hearts in their throats. Ray reacted extremely fast. A magical light struck out. The scalpel spun and flew from his hand with a clang, falling to the ground. Ray firmly gripped his wrist again. Cedric's suicide attempt failed. Ray used an unquestionable tone, telling him to come with him. After learning the news, Philip blamed himself for the medical room's negligence. Ray calmly said it didn't matter. After all, no actual harm was caused. While Cedric kept his head deeply buried, silent as a stone statue, Philip mustered courage, asking if he really wanted to die. Cedric didn't deny it. Philip's tears nearly spilled over. Cedric broke down, saying everyone would mock his weakness. Philip urgently comforted, believing he could overcome any difficulty. These words instantly ignited Cedric's rage. He roared that Philip didn't understand the real him at all. Ray's gaze keenly fell on his chest. Red light flickered faintly there. Magic was flowing out of his body abnormally fast. The situation was bad. He recalled Bolonica saying bloodstones would cause people to go mad. Cedric still raged in emotion, questioning why they saved him. Philip couldn't hold back anymore, shouting out his heart's words with sobs. He firmly said Cedric was his most important friend. This word made Cedric's whole body shake. He recounted his past atrocities. He'd even nearly killed him, but Philip insisted he had his reasons. Ray calmly observed, discovering his magic was already depleted. This current rage was more like a powerless disguise and performance. Philip's emotions also grew agitated, his voice trembling. He begged Cedric to tell the real reason for acting that way. Cedric turned his face away, resistantly telling him not to ask anymore. Philip stepped forward, grabbing his hand, tears finally sliding down. Choking, he pleaded, if he still considered him a friend, be honest. Cedric clenched his teeth tight. The high walls built in his heart were collapsing. Memories surged, the bitter warmth of sharing one piece of bread, the joy flashing in the other's eyes when he gave Philip glasses. How they once held hands, laughing as they promised to live good lives together. Yet his later self had beaten his best friend until he couldn't move. Intense guilt finally defeated him. Tears burst forth. He frantically wiped them, incoherently saying sorry to Philip. Finally, he buried his face in Philip's embrace, crying loudly. After emotions calmed, Cedric finally revealed his deeply hidden self-loathing. He hated that weak, incompetent self too much, feeling incomparably angry. So seeing equally weak companions in the restaurant, he vented on them. He stubbornly believed as long as he trained desperately, he could become strong. Whenever someone provoked him, he always smiled, accepting the challenge, then suffering miserable defeat. Reality slaps came again and again. He still refused to admit defeat and turned back. He made excuses for himself, convincing himself he was different from those content with the status quo, until at his most desperate moment, he met that man in a hat. The man said he was just ill and gave him a blood-red ring. After putting it on, power surged. He could even lift heavy oil barrels one-handed. The man told him to build a 66-person organization. There'd be rewards after success. He agreed ecstatically, finally realizing his dream of being captain. But Ray told him he must recognize one fact. His strength didn't come from recovery, but from the ring's magic. Cedric was shocked. reaching out wanting to seize back that ring. Flames suddenly ignited in Ray's hand, quietly leaping. He explained magic existed in this world, usable for making fire or self-enhancement. Cedric stared at the flames, his worldview shattering before his eyes. If strength came from magic, then his weak self never changed. He fell into collapse again, fearing reverting to that past incompetent self. But Ray asserted, as long as he listened to him, he needn't return to the past. He held up the ring, promising he'd give him better, more things than this. Cedric stared at Ray in a daze, too shocked to speak. Soon after, Cedric left full of gratitude. Philip then confirmed with Ray about appointing the vice captain. Ray admitted he'd ultimately leave. Someone needed to take over. Previously, Ray had already promised to teach Cedric combat techniques. Cedric nodded crazily in agreement. Seeing this, Philip sincerely thanked Ray for caring for his friend, and believed using rewards to win hearts was extremely clever tactics. But Ray inwardly thought strength suppression was the fundamental method. Philip gently refuted, strength couldn't exchange for genuine loyalty. True loyalty required properly timed rewards to cultivate. Though Ray didn't fully agree, he felt his words had merit. After going downstairs, Ray gathered everyone to announce several decisions. Then he formally appointed Cedric as the team's vice captain. Everyone discussed, but had no major objections to this arrangement. Ray recalled Philip's advice about rewards, so he threw out the most shocking decision: return everyone's bets. The crowd instantly boiled, disbelief and wild joy intertwining. Philip quietly reminded there were still 2 captives to handle. The bound Jeepa and Lawson were currently trembling. Ray walked before them, directly asking about Bolonica bookstore. Lawson subconsciously shook his head, denying, trying to muddle through. Ray's fist immediately made him understand the situation's severity. Jeepa was scared witless. Without waiting for more questions, he spilled everything. He revealed it was commissioned by the District 3 grocery shop owner. Ray nodded, saying he understood, then grabbed Jeepa's hair, violently slamming him toward the ground. Once, twice, blood gushed from Jeepa's nose. Philip, watching from the side, was alarmed. This was Ray's true face. But he understood public punishment could both calm crowd anger and was a severe warning to Cedric and others. If all this was calculated, Ray was terrifyingly calm. Ray issued an ultimatum to the 2 collapse leaders, ordering them to use any means to make that grocery shop go bankrupt, and threatened if their side suffered losses, he'd hunt them to death. The 2 collapsed on the ground, only boundless fear remaining. As night fell, the 2 leaders were led away by their respective subordinates. The inn roared with joy, everyone immersed in the dinner gathering's happiness. Someone suddenly discovered Lord Hunter's figure had disappeared at some point. Ray sat alone on the spacious rooftop, far from the clamor below. Philip's definition about friends echoed in his mind. He thought for the first time whether he'd ever had real friends. Perhaps only the children struggling to survive under the bridge counted. He also wanted to view Niles, who was like father and teacher, as a friend, yet didn't know if a 20-plus year age difference allowed friendship. A sour loneliness enveloped him. He thought he probably couldn't make friends anymore. A different kind of monster didn't deserve understanding and bonds. Just then, Philip's voice rose, accompanied by footsteps. He carried 2 cups of hot cocoa, guessing Ray would like sweet drinks. Ray didn't refute, only tacitly allowing him to sit beside him. He took a sip. The warm sweetness instantly amazed his taste buds. The warmth held in his palms, temporarily dispelling the coldness and emptiness at the bottom of his heart. The next morning, Philip set out northward to scout the new base. Ray walked alone through the bustling market. Street thugs fearfully avoided him, one after another. He finally stopped before that familiar Bolonica bookstore. The instant he pushed through the door, Bolonica excitedly trotted over. Her tone carried complaints, recounting these days' worry over his lack of news. But the next moment, she stared wide-eyed with distress. Ray removed his hat, revealing that face covered in scars, but he only stated blandly these minor injuries were nothing at all. Bolonica's tears instantly burst forth, sobbing in rebuttal. Ray gazed at her, that warm white emotion in her chest particularly striking. He silently thought that white was truly beautiful, like a warm little sun. Just then, Bolonica was about to use magic to heal his wounds. The faint light just appeared before being silently dispelled by Ray. He reminded her excessive use of atmospheric magic would cause poisoning. Bolonica froze. Warmth from being cared for surged in her heart. Going upstairs, Ray suddenly stopped, asking a strange question. He asked whether she considered him her friend. Bolonica was stunned, not understanding why he suddenly asked this. Ray said he wanted to know how ordinary people defined friends. Bolonica's heart fell into conflict. He was a benefactor who saved her twice. The closeness as fellow magicians truly existed, yet they'd known each other briefly. She looked up, meeting Ray's eyes that seemed to hold expectation. Face slightly flushed, she finally bloomed with a smile, answering affirmatively yes, but Ray had no response. Turning to continue upstairs, Bolonica hurriedly caught up, her heart pounding, asking back, what about him? Did he also view her as a friend? Ray turned back, his gaze calm and penetrating, giving a brief answer, no. Those 2 words stabbed into Bolonica's heart like ice picks. Strong feelings of being toyed with surged, her face flushed bright red. The next second, an uncontrollable roar erupted from the bookstore. Outside Grandpa's room door, Bolonica huffily turned and went downstairs. Ray couldn't understand why she suddenly shouted. He pushed open the door, seeing Grandpa Graham waiting for him. Grandpa smiled, complaining he grew more sleepy with age. Time time running short. Ray bluntly asked whether he was about to leave this world. Grandpa frankly admitted he had at most half a year remaining. Precisely because of this, from today on, he'd intensify teaching magic. Ray nodded, then pulled out that bloodstone ring. He requested Grandpa first tell him what exactly this thing was. Grandpa Graham examined it carefully, recognizing this as a type of charging stone. More critically, special magic had been applied to it. It could enhance the wearer's physical abilities under specific conditions. Grandpa's tone deepened, pointing out it mixed with draining-type magic. This ring could absorb the wearer's life force to repair itself. Ray felt surprised such things could truly be accomplished. Grandpa solemnly pressed, where did he obtain such a dangerous object? Ray admitted honestly after becoming the kid's leader, he got it from the former captain, and the former captain claimed it came from an organization called MONOCLE. Hearing this name, his expression changed drastically. He told Ray how terrifying this organization was, powerful forces, secretive actions, involving countless dark dealings, and its truly dangerous aspect. All members were magicians. Ray thought magicians were common. Grandpa smiled negatively, stating MONOCLE members weren't afraid of magic poisoning. Ray sensed something wrong, pressing why Grandpa knew them so well. Grandpa's gaze was distant, mentioning he once invested youth seeking the rainbow, and in legend, part of the rainbow was in MONOCLE's hands. This answer shocked Ray tremendously.